What if retirement showed up before your savings did? They told us to save for retirement, but let's be honest. Life has a way of spending the money before we ever get a chance to save it. So if you're 60 or older and you're wondering, now what? Stay with me, because today we're talking about real steps you can take next. Hey y'all, welcome in. It's Vicki with Boomers on a Budget. And today we're talking about something that can make your stomach drop just a little bit about what do you do if retirement's here or it's right around the corner and you don't have the savings you thought you'd have? Maybe life happened. Maybe you raised kids. Maybe you helped your parents, went through a divorce. Maybe you had medical bills that showed up. Maybe you worked hard your whole life, but every time you got a little ahead, something needed fixing, paying, or rescuing. And now everybody's out there talking about their $1 million retirement accounts like we all had a spare yacht payment to invest back in 1987. Well, bless their hearts, because if that's not your story, you're not alone. And more importantly, you are not out of options. So today I want to walk you through 7 things to do first if you're 60 or older and you don't have much money saved for retirement for whatever reason. No judgment or shame here, no fancy money talk. Just some real life steps to help you get steadier. And the first thing I want you to do is to stop calling yourself behind. Now, I know that may sound a little too simple, but hear me out. When you keep saying, I'm behind, I'm messed up, I should have done better, shoulda, coulda, woulda, makes you freeze. And frozen people do not make good decisions. They avoid opening the bills. They avoid checking the bank account. They avoid making phone calls. They avoid asking for help. And that only makes everything feel heavier. And can I be honest with you for a second? Most people did not skip saving because they were out buying diamonds and riding around in convertibles. A lot of people didn't save because life was just expensive. They were paying rent or a mortgage, buying groceries, keeping cars running, raising kids, especially if you were a single parent like me without any assistance from the other parent. Maybe you're helping family members or dealing with something medical or just trying to survive layoffs and inflation and everything else that came down the road. So, no, we are not going to sit here and act like you failed at life. We're going to start where you are, and that's the only place anybody can start. So, the next thing to do is to figure out your keep the lights on number. And this is not a full fancy budget. This is the basic number you need every month to keep your life steady. Write down what you absolutely must pay for: housing, utilities, food, medicine, insurance, transportation, phone, basic debt payments if you have those. And that's it for now. Not gifts, not vacations, not home decor, and not I was just looking online shopping. Just the real number it takes to keep your basic life running. Now, this number may make you nervous at first, but it also gives you power, because once you know the number, you can stop guessing. You can look at your Social Security, your pension, if you have one, part-time income, or whatever comes in each month, and ask yourself, does this cover my keep the lights on number? If the answer is yes, we can work with that. But if the answer is no, then we know the problem's not just spending. It may be income, housing, debt, or benefits you haven't even tapped into yet. Either way, now we're dealing with facts instead of fear, and facts are much easier to work with than panic. So once you know your basic number, the next step is to separate your bills into 2 piles. The first pile is must pay. These are the things that keep you housed, fed, keep you safe, and medically covered. And the second pile is the can bend. These are the things that may need to change, shrink, pause, or even get handled differently. And this my friends, is where it gets real because sometimes the thing that can bend is not just a streaming service. Sometimes it's much bigger. It might be how often you drive, how much you spend on gifts, how much you help those adult children, how often you eat out, how much you spend on convenience food, how much house you're trying to maintain, how much car payment you're carrying, how much insurance you're paying because you never shopped around. And this is not about cutting every little joy out of your life. That's not what we're doing. This is about asking yourself, what can change without wrecking my quality of life? Because some things can change. You may not like every change, and I understand that. I didn't when I had to go through this process. But there's a big difference between making a thoughtful adjustment and waiting until life forces one on you. We want to be ahead of the hard stuff as much as we can, even if we even if we're only ahead by a baby step. At least you'd be moving forward, right? Now, this is a big one, and I don't want you skipping it because your pride gets in the way. Look for benefits and programs that you may qualify for. These programs exist for a reason, my friends. You may be able to get help with food, prescriptions, utilities, maybe even property taxes or transportation, or even medical cost. And depending upon where you live and your income, you may want to look into things like SNAP benefits for groceries, a Medicare savings program, extra help for prescription drug cost, utility assistance, property tax relief for seniors, local senior center meal programs like Meals on Wheels, transportation help, food pantries, community action agencies, your local council on aging. And listen, using help you qualify for does not mean you failed. It means you're just being practical. You paid into these systems, you worked, you raised families, you contributed, you helped other people. So if there's help available now for you, please don't sit there struggling in silence because you think you're supposed to handle everything alone. That's just not right. That's exhausting. So call your local senior center. Call 211 if it's available in your area. Call your county office. Ask your pharmacist about prescription savings. Ask your utility company about assistance or budget billing. I did this a couple of months ago because my power bill had increased so much, and the lady explained how equalized billing worked, and I decided that that would be a good move for me. And you do not have to know exactly what to ask for. You could start with something like this. Hey, my name is Vicky. I'm on a fixed income and I need to know what help that I might qualify for. And that one sentence right there could open doors for you. Now, this step right here may be a little uncomfortable, but it matters because sometimes we try to fix a big money problem with tiny little cuts that just don't cut it. We clip coupons, skip coffee, buy the cheaper paper towels, maybe even the cheaper toilet paper. And yeah, those things can help, but sometimes the real issue is much bigger. It may be the house, it may be the car, it may be debt, it may be insurance, it may be helping others more than you can afford. And it may be that your income simply doesn't match your current life anymore. And that doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. It means your life may need a new setup. So ask yourself, can I truly afford this house? Is this car payment keeping me trapped? Would moving closer to family help me, or could it hurt me? Could I rent a room to someone who I feel safe with and I trust? Could I downsize later, even if I'm not ready now? And that's something I'm thinking about at the moment. Am I paying for things that I've always paid for? Not because they still make sense. And you don't have to make every decision today, but you do need to tell yourself the truth because retirement with a little savings requires honest decisions, not harsh ones, not panic decisions, honest ones. And honest decisions can give you peace. Be proactive instead of reactive. Now, when people talk about emergency funds, they love to throw around these big numbers. 3 months of expenses, 6 months of expenses, $10,000. And you're sitting there trying to stretch your Social Security to the end of the month. And that kind of advice can just make you want to shut the laptop and go have a glass of wine. So we're not starting there. We're starting with a tiny little safety cushion because your first goal might be $25. Then it might be 50, then 100, and then maybe 250 or larger. And it's not about becoming rich. This is about creating a little breathing room, one tiny little step at a time. Because when you have zero set aside, every surprise feels like a disaster. A flat tire, a prescription copay, a higher electric bill, a plumbing problem. Even a small cushion helps you feel less trapped, and you can build it slowly. Put aside spare change. Save $5 from a refund. Sell one thing you don't need. Use birthday money or, rebate money. Put aside part of a small side job. But don't overlook and downplay these small amounts because small amounts are how steady people start, and steady beats dramatic every single time. So, the last thing I want you to look at is whether you could add a little income, not a second career that wears you out and wears you down, and not some internet nonsense where some guru tells you that you'll make $10,000 a month working only 4 minutes a day. Wow, who knew? We're grown. We've been around that block. We know better. And I'm talking about realistic extra income. Could you work a few hours extra or a few hours a week somewhere? Could you help out at a front desk? Could you pet sit? Could you sit with another senior for a few hours? Could you do some light errands for someone? Could you sell things you don't use? Could you list a few items on Facebook Marketplace or eBay? Could you turn a hobby into a small stream of income? Even an extra 100 or 200 a month could make a big difference when the budget's tight. That could cover gas, groceries, a prescription, a utility bill, a little cushion. And if technology makes you nervous, start simple. Ask someone to help you list one item. Just one. Start somewhere. You don't have to learn the whole internet by Thursday. You just need one small win. So before we wrap this up, I want to say one more thing. Please do not build a retirement plan that removes every bit of joy from your life. Yeah, we need to be practical, and yeah, we need to be careful, and yes, we may need to make some changes, but living on less does not mean living with nothing. Look for joy that doesn't drain your wallet, like coffee at home with a friend, a walk in the neighborhood, a library book, a church group, a free community concert, potluck, a puzzle, a porch visit, a phone call with someone who makes you laugh. A good life is not always an expensive life, friends. Sometimes it's just a quieter one, a one that's more simple, a more intentional. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. So if you're 60 or older and you don't have much saved for retirement, I want you to remember this. You are not starting from nothing. You are starting from experience. You have lived through hard times before. You have figured things out before. You've stretched money before. And you have made a way before. And you can take the next right step now. So start with these 7. Stop shaming yourself. Find your keep the lights on number. Separate the must pay from the can bend. Look for help where you qualify. Make one big, honest decision before 5 little, tiny ones. Build a small safety cushion. Add a little income if you can. And that is how you begin to feel steadier. Not perfect, steadier. And around here, steady is a win. So, your next step, just start here. Find your keep the lights on number. And if this helped you, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave me a comment. I'm still brand new, and I'm still learning, and I'm sure some of these videos sound, I have mistakes, and that's okay, and that's okay for you to make mistakes. You can tell me what's worked for you, or you can just type, "Hey, I'm starting, Vicky," if is where you're at the moment. So I'd like for you to sign up for my newsletter for more tips. It's called Boomer Buzz. And remember, y'all, watch those dollars.